correct and decided to come to University of Cincinnati for his law degree instead, which is almost better. But after graduating, he decided to also remain here in Clifton, the San Diego of the Midwest, as our one lovely Euro loves to say. Since taking office, he has prioritized key issues such as affordable housing, sustainability, and climate action, working to make Cincinnati a more equitable and resilient city for the future. His presence here tonight is a testament to the impact student leadership can have, not just only at our university, but at our city as a whole. It's a reminder that the skills and experiences gained here, both in student government and on campus, can shape the leaders of tomorrow. With that, please join me in welcoming the Mayor of Cincinnati.
Thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it and so inspired by the huge turnout. I'll just speak for a few minutes to kind of center you in what's going on in the country, what's going on in the state, the city, and on campus, and hopefully give you some sense of what you can do as student leaders, as potentially elected student leaders, but also as students who are just really engaged and care very passionately, I would imagine, about the future of our country and our region. You know, for me, it's the things going on right now are so fundamentally and deeply personal. And it's because I'm the son of a refugee. My mom was born in Tibet, and she was forced to flee when the communists took over. So my mom and my grandparents picked up, made their way through the Himalayas, through Nepal, and into India, where she grew up as a refugee. Against all odds, she made it to college in New Delhi, India, where she met my father, who's from Punjab. And the young couple got married and decided to come to the United States. So they literally could have gone anywhere. This was 1980, and they chose to come, of all places, to Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is why I am here in Ohio. I was born a couple of years later, went to public schools, Ohio State, I know, poor decision, and then came to UC for law school. After law school, I worked at a very large international law firm in their Washington, D.C. office as an antitrust litigator for White & Case. I then transitioned into President Obama's Department of Justice. I was a special assistant United States attorney. And then most recently in the private sector, I was the global brand attorney for Procter & Gamble's skincare company, Oil of Olay. And then I decided to run for office. You know, growing up, I was really passionate about politics because my mom was a refugee, because my parents were immigrants. Knowing current events, understanding politics was something that was instilled in me at a young age. I was really passionate about politics, worked on campaigns. I was involved in student government in high school. I was involved in student government at Ohio State. I was student body president at Ohio State my senior year. And so politics is something that's always been a passion of mine. But given my name and my ethnicity, I never really thought that I could run for office myself. Because growing up in the 80s and 90s, I never really saw people who looked like me in those kinds of leadership roles. And so I'm really encouraged by just how diverse this room is, because I do think it matters. Representation matters, particularly in leadership roles and particularly at a time like this. My first race was in 2016. I ran for the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts. Certainly not the sexiest position, but I was really passionate about justice reform. I was really passionate about eviction reform and wage garnishments, access to justice. When the courthouse is scary and bureaucratic and confusing, it really prevents everyday normal people from getting access to the kind of justice that we are supposed to be guaranteed by our Constitution. In 2021, I decided to run for mayor. I was very much an outsider, never having worked in City Hall or in municipal government. And ultimately surprised a lot of people by winning. In fact, every race that I've run in, whether it's junior high, high school, college, I ran for Congress unsuccessfully, county, mayor, every single race I've ever run in, I have been faced with overt racism. People telling me to go back to my own country, people calling me ISIS or a terrorist, people telling me that I have to change my name in order to get elected, to anglicize it in some way. And you know, what I'm really proud of is that throughout all of that, I have been specifically committed to running as myself and articulating my vision as my authentic, in my authentic identity, and proud of my own family history in the past. You know, unfortunately though, given the challenges that we're seeing nationally, and certainly it's having an impact here in Cincinnati, a lot of the policies, a lot of the generosity, and a lot of the grace that is inherent in this country, that is really the only reason I'm standing here today, that ladder of equity is under attack. And it's personal for me because while my parents immigrated here and followed the rules, when I was born here, they were not yet citizens. And so, based on getting rid of birthright citizenship, I would not be a citizen. I probably wouldn't be living here because, similar to the Haitian immigrants in Springfield and across the country, even though they followed the rules and are here legally, because of the attacks from leaders in Washington, D.C., racist attacks accusing them of eating cats and dogs, their status is being revoked and they're being run out of the country. And that could very well have been my parents and me as a young child. Because where they immigrated, Beaver Creek, Ohio, of all places, is just 20 minutes away from Springfield, Ohio. I'm a DEI mayor. The only reason I went to Ohio State is because I got a minority scholarship to go there. The only reason I got my first job out of law school is because I was noticed at a diversity job fair. Everything that I am today is a result of the policies that created those opportunities and the grace and generosity of this country. And yeah, it's a scary time because the fundamentals of our country are under attack, and unfortunately they're under attack from the various highest levels of our government. And so I share that with all of you today because what I really want to talk about is leadership. No matter whether you're running for elected office in college or whether you're running in elected office to be mayor, the leadership qualities that define you as a successful leader are no different. And I have been student body president at Ohio State, and I have been mayor. And so I think I'm uniquely qualified to talk about how similar they are. And right now, particularly right now, leadership, and specifically student leadership, is critical. Leadership is something that I think a lot of people aspire to. Leadership is something that a lot of people want, whether they want it because of the notoriety it brings, whether they want it because of the power that is inherent in leadership, whether they want it just to put it on their resume in order to prepare themselves for getting a job in the future or getting into grad school. Whatever the motivation, leadership at its core is truly selfless. Because most of the time, being in these leadership positions is not fun. It's really hard. So whether you're a student or whether you're the mayor, you are raising your hand and saying, this is my responsibility to be the voice and representative of the people that elected me. Not just the people who voted for me, but everyone that I represent. The responsibility, the burden of that is heavy. And so if you're here thinking about running for student office because you think it's going to look good or you think you're going to get power from it, you're going to be profoundly unhappy. Because really what it means is that you're the one who is responsible. You're responsible when things are going well, and you're very much responsible when things are not going well. You're the moral voice of your constituency. And so people will come to you and expect you to have an opinion on everything, to lead in a way that inspires the people around you, and to fight back against inequities and challenges to the very values that brought you to that place. Leadership is hard, but it's necessary. It's particularly necessary right now. What leadership is not is cruel. Leadership is never cruel. At its core, government is a place where everyone can come together and where nobody gets left behind. when you're running for office, when you're leading, yes, you want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be successful, but I would challenge you to think about the most vulnerable, to think about the folks who have more obstacles to having their voice heard, and to strenuously try to protect them and lift them up. Because power is not a luxury, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility to help, to make your constituents' lives better. And sometimes it's a responsibility to speak truth to power. Leadership is not petty. No matter whether you're in elected office at the student level or at the local level, there are going to be people who disagree with you. There are going to be people who call you names. There are going to be people who are just rude and oftentimes mean. And leaders don't take it personally. Leaders don't enact retribution for those who disagree with them. Leaders don't respond in kind with ad hominem attacks. Leaders try to be empathetic, even and especially with people who disagree with you. You know, sometimes as mayor, my job is to deal with profound trauma in our community. Trauma from gun violence, trauma from poverty, trauma from policies coming from the federal government that make people scared. So sometimes that means that I'm a shoulder for people to cry on. Sometimes that means I'm someone to give hugs or to make people laugh. And sometimes that means that I present myself as the target for them to get out all of their emotions and their feelings, almost in a cathartic way. But your challenge as leaders is to rise above and to think empathetically about why someone is experiencing trauma. What is actually happening in their lives that they're so frustrated, so sad, so desperate that they have resorted to emotionally displaying those feelings and sometimes at you. And the role of a leader is not to blame them or to take it personally, but to better understand what their perspective is, to better understand the challenges in their lives, and most importantly, to try and fix it. Not everyone is going to agree with you. Constituents, supporters, people who voted for you, people who didn't vote for you. But the most important thing a leader can do is have a clear vision, believe in that vision, and try your hardest to persuade people to buy into it. A leader doesn't demand support. A leader doesn't threaten you if you don't support them. A leader is supposed to inspire. And it's supposed to bring everyone together, particularly in times of crisis. A leader doesn't look for someone to blame. A leader owns responsibility and tries to fix the problem. Those principles are true no matter what you run for. If you run and win, you're a symbol of hope to the people who want a better life. Take this seriously. Because everything that I learned in student government, in school, I applied to this day. And there are leaders at the national level who don't just not display those principles I'm talking about, but oftentimes display the exact opposite. Those are not people to look up to or to emulate. You have a huge responsibility if you get elected to student government right now in this moment. Because people are scared and frustrated and angry and they're looking for leadership. And if that's you, you better lead. You better have the courage of your convictions. You better have the superpower of empathy. Because if you don't, they will hold you responsible. But more than that, if you don't have a strong student voice, particularly right now, the lives of students could be worse off because of that. So again, take this seriously. Student government is as big or as small as you make it. If you focus only on small issues, then student government will be small. If you take big swings and have a broader vision, then you can inspire an incredible change that will not just have an impact on this campus, but an impact on the region. That's my hope for you. And if you doubt whether you can do it, I would ask you to take a look at my story and where I started. Because in one generation, my family went from being refugees to now the mayor of a major American city. And that story still only happens in this country. It's on you and your generation to preserve that dream for the future. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you so much. Can we get one more round of applause for the mayor, please? With that, we'll move forward to the portion of our actual debate here. We will start with Grace, who will kind of give a rundown of the event structure, and then we will go from that. Thank you so much.
I'm just going to throw this away.
Hi everyone. So this debate is going to be a little bit different from our forum. So the first thing that we'll be doing is bringing our slates down. And we're just going to be asking them questions related to their platform, including student life, academics, campus life, etc. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to respond, with our time tracked by Lydia, who will be holding up time cards while they're answering questions. And then for our senator-at-large candidates, there is going to be the opportunity to provide a rebuttal. So with that, let's begin. I'd like to introduce our Slate candidates, Josh and Malini. If you could come down to the front of the room.
Thank you guys for being with us tonight. We're going to start off just having you both introduce yourself and telling us why you want to be president and student body vice president.
Yeah, I'll start first. My name is Joshua Copley. I am a third-year criminal justice major with minor in political science. I'm currently a senator at large with the undergraduate student government. And why do I want to be president? I want to be able to really have a voice with the administration. I want to be able to really be in front of students and be able to listen to them and actually use what they're telling me and make a difference.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Malini Alicia. I'm a second-year criminal justice and international affairs major. The reason I want to run for student body vice president is a very loaded question. I think that we have so many students at our campus that need represented, and not just represented but supported, and being able to sit in front of students and hear what they have to say and advocate for them and have a strong voice in our undergraduate student government is very important to me, and is something that I'm very passionate about.
Group's good, actually. So everyone can hear us.
Sorry, we realized halfway through that the layout was probably non-conducive to a more, well, engaging conversation. So, Josh, I have your first question. You emphasized that representing the student body is your top priority. However, some believe that SG has struggled to effectively engage all students, particularly those who are not already involved in student organizations. How will your administration ensure that student voices, especially those from marginalized and non-traditional students, are actually heard and acted on?
Yeah, I believe student government right now has not presented itself as much as we should be. It's kind of something we've been working on building, and in our administration, I want to start with having some of our senators start going to student orgs. I want us to go to student orgs more. I want us to be tabling more, just a casual tabling event. We don't need to be doing like a special event, just being out there for our students to talk to us. It starts with that, it's really getting us out in front of the students rather than kind of staying behind and doing our thing in the Senate room. We don't really get to talk to students in the Senate room, so that is my personal goal with it.
Yeah, I think that what Josh said is great. I think that in order to grasp more of the student body, we need to go where students are, and as student leaders, we need to ensure that we are going up to students and asking them, like, how are you doing? What is something that you would want to see on campus? What is something that you think is a concern on campus? And not even just that, but also, what do you think is going great on campus? We don't want to fix things that are already broken, or not fix things that are already broken, but change things that are already doing fine.
Yeah. So I think you echoed a very common sentiment I hear, which is meeting students where they are. I think that's great in theory, but if you could please provide for me an example of an issue which you feel needs solved on this campus, and then what meeting students where they are means for that specific issue.
Yeah, currently with student government, one of the issues that I've been hoping to tackle is transportation and the shuttle. And we can hear whispers of like what's wrong, but if we're not going to students and listening to them, then we can't really solve what they want solved. So we've been working on doing surveys, but only surveys can only get you so much. So trying to create a forum, bringing that back from about a year ago, when we would have administration come here and allow students to really talk to them. Student government would also be part of those conversations, and really opening the dialogue with everyone is very important, and I think we can really start doing that with a lot more issues currently.
Perfect. And then for this question, I can go to either of you to answer in whatever order you want. One of your platform points is security, and in your campaign, you guys stress the importance of making campus both safe and lively. What is your plan to improve safety while ensuring that students still feel comfortable moving around campus freely and engaging in student life?
Yeah, I think that is a question that goes hand in hand with what Josh was just saying. One of our platform points is to uplift the night shuttle. We think that students have the night shuttle at their disposal, and we want to ensure that there are a lot of students that are living not necessarily on campus, but also like around the area. And we understand that some students necessarily don't feel as safe as others, and we want to make sure that when they are coming to campus or when they are taking part in the nightlife on campus, they have access to some sort of safe transportation and university transportation that is free and available to them.
Yeah, and on top of that, with another one of our platform points, we are working on a party registration system, which would really emphasize the party safe initiatives that UC already kind of has but doesn't really promote. That would be teaching students how to use Narcan, teaching students what fentanyl testing strips are, how to keep your drink safe when you're out and about. All of those things we kind of want to try to have students being taught more, and that links to our party registration system, because once we teach you that, then that would allow you to register a party at your house. We will provide you with some of those party safe items like Narcan and those fentanyl testing strips, and then you would be able to be a little bit safer while partying. So that's kind of one of our initiatives that we believe in.
All right, when it comes to the party registration, what steps would student government and you guys, if you were elected, need to take in order to get that implemented, get it running?
Yeah, so I could start and then Josh can finish. So one of the things that we were thinking was we need to have the local police department, we don't want to step on anyone's toes, but the local police department as well as UC Police Department collaborate on how we can promote the safer partying, as well as just ensure that it goes the right way and not that we're registering a party and it's not working. And then
yeah, and I can add on to that a little bit more. We're also hoping to grow the relationship with UCPD and CPD, as well as the university. We're all very much a tight-knit area. You could probably do a nice big circle, and you'll have a good amount of students living in that circle, but also permanent residents, which makes it a little bit tricky with UCPD and CPD. But I think it's really important that we are bridging that gap and making sure that both departments are kind of working together, and that would be vital for our party registration system, since we would need them to work together in order to implement that idea.
You mentioned two organizations, UCPD and the university's administration, as being primary parties in the conversation related to public safety. For many of our students, their understanding of personal safety and well-being are not at all affiliated with either of those entities. To those students and those populations, what is your solution for public safety for them?
Yeah, I have been working closely for a little bit now with UCPD, UC Public Safety, and I think there's a lot of growth still to be done to bridge that gap with students and our public safety officers. But I think they have started kind of showing their face with students, building that relationship, number one, and I think student government can be a big help with that. We can connect the students with our public safety officers and continue that growth.
Yeah, I think that a big thing is just advertising the relationship that we are trying to build with UCPD. I think that if students see that there is some sort of trust within the police department as well as the university, they'll feel like, you know, we are trying to help them, we are trying to do these things, we are trying to address these concerns that are being brought up, and that's just something that has to be better advocated.
Your campaign calls for expanding the Bearcat Pantry, but food and housing insecurity go beyond just access to meals. What additional steps will you take to ensure students struggling financially have the resources they need to succeed?
Yeah, I think one thing that, at least when I was a first year, and even now, there are resources on this campus that I had no idea existed. And getting those out there, should be student government's priority. We are supposed to speak with students. So expanding all those resources out to more students, I think it's a great first step. With our Bearcat Pantry expansion, we want to also start trying to expand those hours out, because oftentimes students are going to class, working during those times, and they're unable to utilize that resource at all. So expanding that resource to be utilized by more students is very important to us, as well as making sure there are more locations for our students. It's very much, if you're on one side of campus and the main Bearcat Pantry is in Stratford Heights, you're not really going to want to go all the way down there if you only have 20 minutes in between a class. So making sure we are putting more satellite Bearcat Pantries around campus to increase the usability of it.
Your campaign also mentioned sustainability efforts, including adding recycling bins at shelters. What other long-term sustainability efforts do you plan to champion while covering my
Yeah, I think that the big thing that we had noticed on campus is that we just want students to be aware of what sustainability is and what they can do for sustainability. So just making sure that we are taking part of the sustainability as well, and just showing that we are also at these tailgates, we understand that there is excess of just things that we can do to help sustainability, and it's just important that we are also taking part in knowing what sustainability is.
And with that eco-friendly tailgating initiative, it first started as an idea just for our fraternities to be able to easily recycle, as well as making sure our streets in that area are clean. But then while we were kind of exploring that option a bit more, we realized there's so many other small tailgates that aren't really kind of looked at, such as the ones at some of the parking garages.
local residents and also give back to them, and promoting the spaces where they live is very important, as we are like inhabiting their space, and they might not necessarily feel as fond of us as they could be, and just making sure that they feel seen and heard and also promoted is very important to us.
Yeah, and I also believe if we start making events with students and permanent residents, oftentimes the permanent residents are here much longer than a student doing 4 or 5 years is going to be in Clifton. So I personally believe if there's an event that does really well, a permanent resident is going to try to continue that event with other students, and they're the ones with the funding, which helps even more because we all understand funding for events on this university is very hard to figure out. So we're really hoping that with that collaboration piece, they will continue as the years go by.
So what kind of events would you like to see? Are we talking like a community picnic or like a barbecue, or like what type of events are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so we were kind of targeting like maybe public concerts like at Bellevue there. A lot of time in the summer you'll see a lot of permanent residents, they like to gather at Bellevue, or even the swing sets by Panera Bread, those are owned by permanent residents, and just spaces like that we think that they could be utilized for maybe like a thrift shop event or a public concert or just a networking event with permanent residents.
Yeah, and I would love to see if you guys know the area, the Calhoun, like little circle where the Haynes is, creating that as more of a public event where there might be some food trucks on that little side street by the hotel, seeing if we can get that closed off. They used to do that a couple years back for FC Cincinnati, so maybe some food truck events. I personally believe there's not really a limit to it. I think we could go all over the place. With that park Delaney mentioned, which is nicknamed Pringle Park, if you've seen the statue in that park. Even a yoga event being there rather than on campus, so we're utilizing our off-campus spaces a bit more.
Tremendous. With only 5% of students voting in last year's election, how will your administration actively encourage more students to participate, not just in voting, but in student government overall?
We think that this year is definitely a building year. A lot of our older undergraduate student government members are graduating this year, and we think that it's very important that this year we take the initiative to not only involve upcoming students, but also get them excited about student government. We think that with the ideas, or with the opportunities that were awarded through student government, other students will have access to those opportunities as well. And it's important to make those known and advertise them as much as possible, and just talk about student government.
EFC has also improved a lot this year, not to hype you guys up too much, but I think that was also an amazing first step that we really needed for students to see the election process a bit more. And obviously with all the new events that UC has created, we hope that those will continue to grow year by year, and we'll have our forums filled to the brim with people. And this event, hopefully we'll do it again, and it's even bigger room, like we'll outgrow this room. So I think it's just continuing the events that were, the new changes with parties and different campaigning aspects, continuing that, pushing that forward to go year after year.
I think students like to see a lot of consistency, and if we keep this up, I think that they'll definitely start to gather around here a lot more.
Okay, well, let's give a round of applause to our slate. So the way that this is going to work is we're going to ask you guys questions one at a time, but then once you answer, we're going to open it up to see if anyone else has additional comments or would like to add anything pertaining to the topic that one person spoke on. So first, we're going to have each of you go through and tell us your name, a little bit about yourself, why you would like to be senator at large. And just so you guys know, we have Lydia in the front row with time cards. So you guys get 2 minutes to speak each time, and if you're wondering how much you have left, just look at her. So we can start with you, John.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm John Jensen. I'm a third year in psychology and political science. I've decided to run for senator because I've spent a lot of my time here familiarizing myself with the various organizations on campus. I believe when we see something like we've been seeing recently, it takes a great deal of collaboration from all of these organizations to make something actionable come out of it. So my goal is to be proactive in the legislative maintenance and also the inaction of different programs and initiatives that these organizations can do to overall better improve the student body.
Hello everybody, my name is Jelena Howard. I'm a first year political science major. I'm involved in transitions through the AACRC. I'm involved in the ACLU campus action team. I'm also involved in our student government. I am the director of city relations on the governmental relations committee. I decided to run for senator at large because I believe representation matters. At Cincinnati, we only have a 10% black population, and I would just love to give voice to my peers within the AACRC.
Hey everyone, I'm Jaden Anderson. I'm a first year here at UC. I'm a political science and law and society major. Along with Jelena, I'm also part of our governmental relations committee, and I serve on our first year leadership council as well. I want to run because, not to kind of steal what they were talking about, I'm feeling it's going to be the same with everybody. In a time of like this where action needs to be taken, I would like to think I want to take that first step. And I don't want to think that we're all up here against each other. I like to rather say that we're going to work together to make sure that happens.
Hi guys, I'm Kripa Kumaran. I'm a first year med sci major. I also have a minor in Spanish and integrative health and wellness. I do a lot of things around campus, and the reason I want to be senator is while I'm participating in all these things around campus, I hear a lot of talk about things I want to fix on campus, and being able to actually make that change is something I've learned being in first year leadership council, and it has allowed me to want to do this even more, so that's why I'm doing this now.
Hi everyone, my name is Nora Salem. I'm also first year medical sciences major. A little bit about me, I'm involved in our first year leadership council. I'm involved in many things in our honors program. I'm involved in other organizations on campus, including our Muslim Student Association. And then as to why I want to run for senator at large, genuinely, I just want to make a difference. I haven't been here very long. It's still my first year, second semester. But already I'm proud to call UC my school, I'm proud to call it my home, and everyone wants to do best for their family, for their home.
Yeah, well, hello everyone. My name is Rosalind Wiley. So I'm a fourth year business analytics major and women's gender studies major. So to just kind of tell you a bit more about what I'm involved in on campus. So I was vice president of Kappa Delta this past year, and I'm the current undergraduate representative on the women's gender studies undergraduate committee. And as terms as why I decided to run, as being involved in group life, I was involved in something very localized, and especially with being on campus for such a long time, I've seen some issues prevalent on campus. So I wanted to take what I've learned through my roles on campus and apply it to the broader community on campus.
Amazing. Okay, we're gonna get started with John. So in your platform, you mentioned legislative upkeep and maintenance of university organizations. So can you tell us a little bit about what that would look like and clarify what specific structures or policies you believe need upkeep?
Of course, yeah. So obviously we have everything being thrown at us right now. All these rulings that we're seeing are still heavily under contention. And as we learn more and as more happens, we have to be active in the legislative maintenance of specifically ensuring that our student organizations have their voices, that they are able to cooperate and able to get out new ideas. Along with this, I think that within maintenance also comes unity. We, I think, just need to see more of each other. When something is so powerful that all of us can protest and we see 2 days of it and we feel so strong, we need to ride that feeling. We need to create new actions and create new plans for all these organizations. And I think it starts primarily with us, legislatively, making sure that can get done.
I'd like to also, after any question, if you would like to provide comment, please just indicate and you're able to do so. So would anyone like to comment on that question or that response? Jelena, what specific policies or initiatives do you propose to help reduce poverty among UC students?
Thank you for that question. I believe poverty in our student population is a large issue, maybe something that is a little bit uncomfortable to talk about because so many of us face it undercover. I would also like to expand the Bearcat Pantry. I believe the Bearcat Pantry is underutilized and I believe it could use some more expansion. I don't know if everybody knows where it is. It needs more accessibility. And also, I believe it needs more promotion. We need more promotion of those donations to clothing drives, food drives, and things like that.
Something I'd like to add on to that. I've also heard like the Bearcat Pantry is such a great resource. However, like you said, it may not be the most accessible of places. So not only do I think that like we should focus on expanding it to our different locations, like including the medical campus across Blue Ash. I think one of the best initiatives that we can take for it is perhaps to make it a little more discreet. There is no shame in it, but unfortunately, there is like somewhat of a stigma, I guess, going to these pantries. So I think like just by like covering, just not covering them, but like putting them inside places or making them a little more discreet would help people in feeling that they're more accessible.
Perfect. All right, we're going to move on to Jaden. So Jaden, your campaign emphasizes leadership as one of your platform points. How will you ensure collaborative leadership, working with both students and administration to enact meaningful change?
Well, I think it kind of starts with us, if that makes any sense. You know, there's a huge gap between students and the student government, and then an even bigger gap between student government and then our administration, right? So I would like to just see that come closer. I don't know exactly how that would happen. I can definitely think about that after, but yeah, that's all I really got.
Adding on to your point, I think you made some great points there. I also feel like some of our student body may feel intimidated to speak up about the issues that they see happening on our campus. You know, we see figures like the president or senators and we feel maybe a little bit intimidated to talk to them. And I think with us running, I feel like we're all very approachable candidates, and I just believe leadership starts with us and every single one of you.
Any other comments? Sweet. All right. Kripa, your acronym is BAM, Bridge, Advance, Motivate. In your Bridge initiative, you propose better shuttle and night ride services. What specific improvements would you advocate for? Increased routes, extended hours, or better communication?
So this is something that I actually really struggle with, being a student that has to go over to Med Campus or use some of the resources that are outside of our little campus space. And I definitely think that our app, Translock, a lot of people don't even know how to use it. Me coming here to UC being my first year, I wasn't even sure how to use it, so I had to have people explain it to me. And it is such a hard app to understand, but once you get it, it is really easy, but it's not very reliable. I think that the shuttle I specifically take, sometimes they take a break right outside of Linder, but that's not discussed in the app. It's not mentioned. I think breaks, stops, and all those things should be put on the map as well and indicate our ETAs, like the shuttle will be here in 5 minutes or the shuttle will be here in 10, because a lot of the times the app does say that, but then you're already waiting for it and then you miss your class and you're late to your class because you're like, oh, it's too late and I have to start walking because the shuttle won't be here. So I definitely think better in the app, and especially I would think making it so that the shuttles run on the weekends as well, because a lot of these shuttles don't run on the weekends, and I think that me as a student, I need to go over to Med Campus on the weekends a lot, so I think making an app and extending it to the weekends would improve it a ton.
Any other comments?
I'll add on to that point. I also think transportation is an incredibly important issue, especially I'm a commuter, so I'm thankful that I have a car that I can use to get around with on campus. However, I recognize that that's not the case for most people. So not only would like the night shuttle be a great improvement, but I also think that it would be really nice if people could have like another means of like just walking together, feeling a little safer. I know like on campus, like some areas are very dimly lit, some areas may not feel safe on or off campus to walk to, particularly those like 9 p.m. labs and all those things. And so I think having like a safe walk program like other universities have would be a really interesting thing to implement on campus.
Okay, perfect. Zura, our next question is for you. So your campaign is built around the acronyms PACT, Progress, Access, Community, and Transparency. All super important. How do you plan to prioritize these values when they may sometimes be in conflict?
So I think the most important thing is we're student government and we're representing the students. Like we speak for the students. I think the most important thing is not us assuming what is important or what to prioritize, but reaching out to the students first to see their opinions and see what are your priorities, what are you interested in having changed, what is like up there, like the first thing on your radar versus like, oh, like if we get around to it, like that'll be great. So I think there's a lot of things that I could be passionate about, but maybe they're not like the things that like the general student populace has, and which is perfectly fine. We all have like different opinions, we all have different views on different things, but I think it's important to reach out to students, whether through a survey, whether through tabling, whether through just going out and like talking to people, and just being like, hey, like we're student governments, but we represent you. What do you need from us so that we can get it done?
Awesome. Rosalind, you've run on a platform of protection, support, and unite. On the topic of protection, you propose improving the Bearcat Guardian app with safer walking routes and alternative emergency responses. How do you plan to collaborate with UC Public Safety and other stakeholders to ensure that these changes are both feasible and effective?
Just in terms of how I would communicate with other stakeholders, why I want to make sure I include alternatives to UCPD, I think using UCPD to kind of figure out what those safer walking routes would be really, really great. And in terms of other stakeholders, I think one of our main stakeholders on campus is our students. So I would love to work and collaborate with students to see what they would want out of the app. So one of the things I would love to do, and I was actually at the College of Engineering originally, is to work with the College of Engineering's computer science students and computer engineering students to kind of work and improve on the app and see firsthand what would they like implemented into the app. Thank you.
This kind of goes along with my question too about the safety and the Guardian app. I think the night ride would immensely help, and I think even if we combine those two, that would be a really good resource for students to have.
Perfect. All right, back to you, John. So you talk about student and CUF area resident relations. So the relationship between students and CUF area residents has long been a challenge. What new initiatives or strategies do you have in mind to promote a harmonic relationship beyond existing efforts?
So I'd say the most obvious strategy to take here is, of course, the utilization of the cabinet and making sure our cabinet is properly heeding the word of the CUF residents when they attend the meetings. Other than that, I believe there is a lot of social initiatives we can launch similar to those in the Slate platform. And these overall, just getting involved with each other, the small things, the using the spaces for larger festivals or gatherings. I believe this can slowly work a better relation between the residents and the students.
Jelena, your platform is peace, poverty reduction, eco-friendly initiatives, action, campus safety, and equity. On the topic of poverty reduction, many students struggle with food insecurity and housing costs. How would you work to expand or improve resources like Bearcat Pantry or emergency housing?
That's a really great question, thank you, because I'm currently going through the housing, process, and it is really tough. I think collaborating with UC Housing and other organizations like that would be a great first step. And also being persistent, because the UC housing crisis is not a new thing. It's been going on for many years, and it's not just on our campus, it's the entire city. I think being persistent or reaching out to our city leaders and campus leaders is the first step.
You have really great points, and I think adding on to that, a lot of people, I've heard at least, a lot of people don't really know when to start or like where to start for housing. A lot of the times, people like this might be their first time living on their own, buying a house, renting anything, getting an apartment, and so a lot of people, they might be a little thrown into the deep end. So I think making a resource where students can like access it, like whether it's online or they speak with like an advisor or somebody in administration, where they can just like ask their questions and get them answered, or like even a way for us to like take them through the process to make it a little easier, a little simpler, would like immensely benefit students.
Yeah, once again, even great points, and I'd like to expand even more. There is a lot that our advisors could be doing to overall improve the financial literacy of our students and help them understand how to work your way through all of this. I mean, a lot of us come here, we're away from our parents, we've never lived out on our own before. And after your first year, you're supposed to find an apartment, meet up with people, sign a lease, and do all these things kind of by teaching yourself them. I believe there's a lot more resources that we can offer to students in that regard.
That kind of goes along with that, like having a website where students, especially first year students, can look at it and be like, oh, I need to start looking at housing in November of my first year and not the May of my first year. And then at that point they realize there's no more housing. So definitely having a website that teaches you those things, teaches you questions to ask when you're going on tours, things you should look for when you're buying a house or renting a house to see things that need to be fixed, stuff like that.
I also feel like we have the whole UC alert system, but it doesn't have to just be for alerts. You know what I'm saying? I would like to see the UC alert system be used for deadlines and stuff like that, important housing and everything like that.
To add on to the many points that have been spoken, not only do I think a website would be a great idea, even like a module of sorts, not for a grade, nobody's GPA is tanking, but just a module would just take them through like the basic steps, like how do you file your taxes, how best to interviews, like conduct interviews, or like go through the interview process or get a job. We do have the PPAC, which is an amazing resource, but sometimes some students can feel that like it's a little inconvenient, it might be a little out of the way, or it might not help them personally. And so I think even like living by yourself, how do you cook, how do you clean, what's like some first aid skills. Those are all like incredibly important things that some people, when they're like moving out for the first time, maybe they don't know yet, or rather than learning them the hard way, UC can like better like facilitate that learning process through like a structured like module of sorts.
Amazing. Okay, Jaden, you have the next question. Another key part of your platform is integrity, and some students feel that student government lacks transparency and accountability. And although we are taking steps to address this, how would you further the work to rebuild trust between student government and the student body?
Transparency was actually something that I wrote down for the initiatives that I wanted to accomplish if I was elected in this position. So most of our student government meetings are open to the public, so what I would like to see there is if we could record and release those meetings to the student body just to allow them, because we're making decisions for them they might not even know about, right? So as long as they can, it's easily accessible to them. Another thing I would like to see is we could utilize the news record, which is UC's news outlet, if you didn't know. I would like to see, I don't know if this is possible through senator positions or maybe even a slate. I would like to see something of a press secretary. I talked to some people at Ohio State and their student government has a press secretary. So I'd just like to see that here.
To add on to that, I know I've mentioned this at the forums as well, but I think I really like the recording idea, but I think also having maybe a Senate meeting or these meetings that they have, like with committees like governmental relations, having an open one once a month where they have food and fun activities would allow people to see what's going on around campus and let them learn about UC's government, student government.
add on to both of those. I think another thing that UC or like student government can do to improve its image is just by simply putting their name out there a little more. A lot of people don't realize how involved student government is with a lot of things on campus, and like oftentimes when I go up and tell people, oh, I'm in student government, they're like, great, what is that? So I think just like pushing like the student government initiative a little more, putting their names on things that they're involved in, just like getting the name out there a little more, having people like start asking a little more questions, approaching student government with questions, I think would make it more transparent and could increase involvement in student governments, and it can bring in a lot more diverse perspectives than we might be having currently.
Just going off of all the amazing points I've heard, just going off of transparency too, I think we need to be more transparent about when Senate meetings are, especially someone who's been newer to student government. I didn't even know until recently that they were open to the public. So I definitely think as a student government we could do better at making it known that we want your voices to be heard and we want to hear your opinions. So you should absolutely come to our meetings.
All right, last point maybe. But if you go on the student government website right now for the University of Cincinnati, not the Get Involved link, but the website, you'll see that we're a couple updates behind. There hasn't been a record of meeting minutes in a while, and there's just some information that's a little bit outdated. So I think that's just another small piece of the transparency.
Kripa, again on the bridge topic, you mentioned getting UC more involved in the community. What specific partnerships or initiatives do you envision to strengthen ties between UC and the surrounding neighborhoods?
So I know that our Slate already touched on this, but I definitely think more activities with the community as well as the students would benefit just the vibes in Cincinnati altogether. I definitely think, I really like the idea that actually you mentioned about having picnics. I think that's an awesome idea, having them at like Bellevue or just any other public space and even on campus, because there are a lot of people that live around UC but that don't really come to UC, permanent residents, and I think it'd be cool for them to see what UC is like and understand our perspective, and then for us to understand their perspective as well.
I mean, there's also ways that transcend understanding, that we can go out of our way to make the Clifton area and then the Cuff area a better place. I think that also comes with a little bit of a Slate's platform on different recycling initiatives, getting trash off the streets. I mean, there's a huge student body and they leave behind a lot of waste. So I'm sure there are ways that we can go into the community and see how we can make it look better.
That's a really good point, both of you. I also think as students at the University of Cincinnati, we have to realize that we are in the residents of Cincinnati's personal space, if you know what I'm saying. We're here and this is their city. So I believe that as students, we should begin giving back to the city of Cincinnati, whether that is going to their parks or their areas and cleaning up for volunteer hours or things like that, or just interacting with the citizens of Cincinnati every day. I believe those small steps can just start bridging the connection between us and the residents.
I'd like to quickly connect two ideas that we've talked about here, housing, but also the Clifton community. There is very real concern on this campus that as we continue to expand, our students must go somewhere, and as a result, they are joining the Clifton community and the surrounding neighborhoods more and more often. To any of the candidates, what does appropriate balance between housing insecurity and cultural identity and the Clifton identity mean to each of you or any of you?
I can kind of start with this one. So I think that being a student here at the University of Cincinnati, I know I'm still my first year, so it's very early, but I think as you start to go here, you start to learn about the community and just the aspects of Cincy, downtown Cincy, just all around the area. And I think as people do start to graduate, a lot more people tend to live here and live in the greater Cincinnati area. And I think that our perspectives will allow us to apply them to the greater Cincinnati area eventually, if that makes sense. But I just think our perspectives and what we learn and as we grow is what will impact our community and lessen the worries about housing.
Just go off of that. I think one of the main issues that students face is oftentimes there is a bit of a stereotype about like college students, especially like living in dorms or apartments or houses in the community in the area. And I think the best way to do that is just to bridge the gap. Have the students reach out and be like, hey, like we know like these may be some assumptions, but we're responsible citizens. We're like responsible adults. We clean up after ourselves, like our Slate talks about. We take care of the environment around us. We're not necessarily like causing a hassle for like the neighbors. And just by improving like the image of UC students, I think residents might feel a little less threatened on us encroaching on their area, because rather than encroaching, we can just be merging in with them calmly, and of course we can just have that like good like beneficial mutual relationship with them.
I completely agree, and I think the first step of bridging the gap between us and the residents of Cincinnati is understanding the history of the city. Unfortunately, Cincinnati has undergone a lot of gentrification, and I think before we start to inhabit and take over some of these communities, we should understand the history, and maybe the bridging the gap will be a little bit easier if we understand where they're coming from.
I also would like to build off that by saying, like we said, we need initiatives to help coach younger students on where they should move. And I believe if the university provided them some structure on where would be a good place to live, where are other college students living, you might not see as much mixing of the two communities, which it's natural, it happens. But I think you know, having students in designated areas kind of keeps it easier to also manage where those students are.
Okay. So we're gonna pick back up with Nura. So something that you touch on is providing support for minority students in multi-faith spaces. So what challenges do you foresee in expanding multi-faith spaces, and how will you navigate them, especially with space and budget constraints?
So everybody here knows what's going on. I won't lie to you. Things look a little uncertain right now. This is actually an initiative I've been like passionate about, even in high school. This was something I pushed for in my high school, and like I came here first year in UC, and I was like, okay, there is potential for a space. There's potential for growth, and so I got involved in my Muslim Student Association, and I've been in contact with the Ethnic Services Program, and we've been like looking for different spaces. However, there is obviously an issue of space on this campus. I know they're doing a space survey right now, so we've been looking into like potential like different places where we can establish just like a general multi-faith center, multi-faith or atheist, honestly, just rather than it be like a place for like one designated group, just a place where we can have like interfaith dialogue. I think a lot of the issues that are coming out nowadays are because people are, for lack of a better word, ignorance. Ignorance could be bliss, but also ignorance sometimes, it just doesn't work out. People don't understand other perspectives, people may not understand what you're thinking, people may not understand your like perspectives, your views, your background. So just by having that like intercommunication between groups, it could make things a lot easier. It could make things maybe a little less tense on campus. People could just like understand like, here's my perspective, here's your perspective. We have differences, but we can still be friends, we can work together, and we can just have kind of that like harmonious relationship, I guess. Not to sound a little Christian, but yeah.
I actually really like that idea, and I think that it will benefit our campus a ton, especially in this time in history. There's a lot going on with this, and I think it's so important to be able to give the safe space and to give these safe spaces to individuals that practice what they believe in without having.
This is an issue that has existed since COVID, and it's something that now we kind of have to deal with. As we've moved to online resources, we've kind of missed the function of getting you know where people are. I think a way to really expose our our resources is to have more activity on the campus. I mean, the new student orientations, talking to advisors and advisors recommending these resources. And also the upkeep of websites. You go through a lot of links that end up in dead ends. As well as like accessibility resources, mental health resources. There's also a lot of professional resources that are covered in red tape, and it feels like a mystery to get to them. I believe some of the strategies that we can do to take this is put ourselves in their shoes, walk ourselves through these websites, see what we can change and see what needs updated in order to make sure they are more accessible.
Tremendous. Jelena, you emphasize equity. What specific policies would you advocate for to ensure that all students have equal access to opportunities on our campus?
Thank you for that question. That's something I actually really hope you would bring up because we've all seen it. We all know what's happening. For the past 2 days, I've been out protesting for the university to upkeep our diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a really hard subject for me to talk about because I did come to UC with in mind that I would be around other people who look like me. But as of late, it seems like it might be in jeopardy. But through my campaign and my platform, I just want you all to know that I will do my best to try and keep these sorry. I'm going to try my best to try and uphold diversity, equity, inclusion. It's going to be a difficult task under the new administration America has undergone, but I'll try my best, and hey, I am DEI.
Yeah, just to build off, it is going to be hard. But examining what we have right now, at the university level, our initiatives are being stripped, but the student organizations and us maintain the ability to fund and regulate our own initiatives. It doesn't mean it's the end of it, it just means we have to get into gear to make sure it stays relevant and stays happening.
When I was doing research for all the initiatives that I wanted to start, I was looking at other student governments across the nation. And specifically to deal with this, I believe it was South Carolina has a sort of multicultural caucus. So they'll put cultures in groups, and maybe they're associated with student government, maybe they're not, but I feel like that would be a really good step to make sure everyone is heard and accounted for.
And like Jelena mentioned, and she's probably not the only one, but everyone in student government is going to make sure that this is something we work towards and we fight. And again, I'm also DEI, and I think that it's really important to fight for something that affects each and every one of us.
As someone also DEI, we're pretty diverse group actually. I think the most important thing is understanding what DEI means. DEI doesn't just mean your ethnicity, doesn't just mean your religion. It means having an accessible campus for wheelchair users. It means having a nursing station in Langston for mothers. It means just so many different aspects. And I think by communicating this and saying DEI may not just be those like trigger words that you hear in the media. It may not just be those like, oh no, like DEI, like just really understanding what DEI means and really reaching out and seeing, okay, like we can't break the law obviously, but what can we do, and communicating with the students again, because in the end we serve you. So communicating with you all, seeing, hearing your frustrations, hearing your ideas, just trying to reach out and really see just what do you need from us and what are we able to do within the rest of our capabilities, because again, we are the ones who are communicating your frustrations to administration, and we will do our best with administration to figure out everything that's happening with you guys.
Perfect. Okay. Jaden, another thing your platform highlights is action. What is the first tangible initiative you would pursue if elected, and how do you plan to measure your success as a senator at large? What benchmarks will you set to track progress?
Well, one thing I want to make sure happens is that we make sure that we're transparent with the student body. I would love to see the student body react more with student government. So one thing I was thinking of, kind of what Josh Copley was talking about earlier, is to bring back a form so that students can automatically just take their concerns to student government, and maybe we bring it up in a Senate meeting next time, or next week, or whenever the next meeting would be. And I would love to see the students' concerns get dealt with and make sure they don't happen again.
I think this goes along with exactly what you're saying. I think that a lot of people see the email and they're like, I'm not answering that. So I think also tabling and being like, hey, what are some things around campus you want to fix? People are a lot more likely to interact when it's in person, or it's more personable as opposed to just being online.
Adding on to that, tabling is great, and it's really a way to reach out to people on campus, as well as like a form. I do agree that sometimes maybe the form might get a little lost in the sauce. We all get a bunch of emails all the time. I think another way we could approach this is maybe having sort of like a town hall once a month, being like, okay, here we have Adriaticos, come here and just like ask student governments whatever you want to ask. I mean, we as people who work for the students, we should be able to answer student questions. We should be able to answer them like, okay, like we voted you in, but what are you actually doing for us? Like, how are you actually making a difference? How are you addressing our issues? If we are going to give you our support, we want to make sure that changes are actually being implemented, things are actually moving along, and that people are actually committed to the rules that they're doing. So I think almost like a status report once a month, where student government can be like, hey, this is what we've accomplished so far. We want to hear any more ideas and learn from the audience, the students, about what you really care about right now, what's on your minds, what questions do you have for us. I think that'll go a long way in increasing transparency between students and their student government.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more point really quick. So I think it's great to meet people in person and kind of give them that, but I do think it's very important for us to kind of send out a survey online and submit a form that people can even just anonymously submit their either their complaints or their concerns about the community in general too, and I think that's definitely something that should be enacted.
Awesome. Kripa, many candidates campaign on improving student life, but changes require funding and administrative approval. How will you work within budget and policy limitations to accomplish your goals?
I think that budget is a huge thing, especially in this time when we're losing a lot of funding for a lot of organizations and things that we value on campus. I think that budget is important, and I think it should be considered in what we're doing, but I think that anything we put our minds to, we could work around the budget aspect of it, but I definitely think that it does have an impact. It's how the world works, sadly, but I definitely think that that could be taken into account and incorporated in a lot of our ideas. We could even raise money. We could do things to improve our budget and then act on it.
I also just think a big piece of that's going to be important is communications with our appropriations committee. It exists at the school, and it is a big group of people. I encourage any of you that would want to join it to join it. But I believe communication with them could really open the door to new dialogues, where we have funds open, what we could do to fundraise to help someone else launch an initiative. I just think that's a very important piece.
Okay, Nura. Your platform mentions transportation and safety improvements, which are recurring student concerns. What specific gaps in UC's current transportation or safety policies do you see, and what would you change?
So this is definitely something very important because we get a lot of questions about this. So I think transportation is a very fundamental aspect of UC. UC is huge, honestly. We have campuses on different locations. Even our main campus, honestly, is huge. And we have a lot of students who don't have the most reliable forms of transportation. I know we've covered the night shuttle already, and a lot of people are very passionate about the night shuttle. Another thing that I would be interested in is, I know other universities have a safe walk program where people can opt in from that 9 p.m. lab you're walking home to, and it's off campus. You're like, okay, I don't need to take a shuttle, it's not that far. But also, I don't want to walk alone, I don't know who else is out there, I feel unsafe just going around by myself. And so we could have people within the Safe Walk program, people who are registered, people who work for the Safe Walk program. They can work with the program, and they can just walk people back to their homes, walk people back to the dorms. Just another person, because of course there's always like safety numbers. We always feel more comfortable in numbers. And then also another thing I'll briefly mention that's been brought up in forums is getting to the airports, especially with a lot of students who may not live in Cincinnati or maybe international students even. I think that's something very important to be discussed. Having a shuttle, having transportation, rather than paying dozens of dollars, paying like $40+ just to get to the airport and go home. I think as students who pay for like the amenities on campus, I think it's a right that we should have just to get basic transportation to go back home and to come back to school when we need to.
I really liked your Safe Walk idea thing. I think it's an awesome initiative to have, but I also think that in a way, it's something that people have to go out and seek and do. I think it's awesome, but I think we should also do something where we offer like self-defense classes, or when you come to UC, we give out safety toolkits, let's call them. But yeah, I think offering like classes where you could learn like self-defense or ways to keep yourself safe, because inevitably there's gonna be a time when you're walking back to your off-campus housing late at night and there's nothing you can do about it.
Tremendous. Ross, you highlight a lack of connection between Greek life and student organizations and propose the creation of a Greek and Student Organization Council. What barriers exist that currently prevent these groups from collaborating, and how will your council overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, I've participated in both Greek life and student org very, very heavily, and I've experienced on both sides that either people in Greek life don't want to get involved in student orgs because of the negative connotations there are about Greek life, and student orgs don't really want to interact with people in Greek life because of the negative connotations. So I think the first thing I would love to do is kind of set up, like we've talked about it several times, after kind of organizing a council, is set up a town hall where student org leaders or even people in the community and Greek life leaders can come and like voice their concerns and their opinions about how we can work together. And then can I get the second part of that question, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
You're good, I'm sorry.
So yeah, the second part was how will your council overcome that?
I guess I can answer that. Yeah.
Any further comment?
Yeah, just on that as well. I think another piece is just there's not a lot of availability for conversation. I think a council that could get ideas transferred would just help that process greatly. It's good.
I also think another way to kind of break up those negative stereotypes you were discussing about Greek life would be to maybe open up some of those Greek life events to the public.
Yeah.
And I also feel like there's a whole other element to Greek life maybe some students don't know. I think a lot of people don't know that we do have G9 organizations on our campus. They're just not very promoted in a way. And I think with student government we can help promote those events and maybe collaborate with the Greek life to help the student population maybe get more involved.
Yeah.
Sweet. And so we have asked you so many questions here this evening, and it was with the goal to better understand who you would be if selected to lead our university. And so I would like to provide you the opportunity to ask inherently your own question, for it's in questions which challenge and in speaking truth to power that student leaders really can make an impact on this campus. So I ask each of you, going down the line, if in your first day in office, what would be the question that you're either asking yourself, your peers, or this university?
I think the question that I would ask my peers, ask the members of the student government in the hypothetical I am elected into the office, I think it'd be where we start. There's obviously a lot of initiatives that all of us want to launch, and we have to dial in on what we believe is going to A, give us the most longevity, and B, going to be the most important to quickly create some good change within the organization.
I would say, hypothetically, if I were elected as senator, I think the first question I would ask my peers would be, what do you want from me? As I would be representing each and every one of your beautiful Bearcat faces, I think I would really want to represent you in what you think and what you want to see happen on our campus.
My first question would probably be, what can we get done and how quick can we get it done? Because at the end of the day, we're representatives of you, and if we're not enacting change, we're not doing our job.
Mine would be what's working and what's not. If we have things that aren't working and that are still being done, there's no point in having them. Instead, we can look to fix them.
I think my first question would be, not to bounce off you guys a little bit, but why did you vote for me and what do you need from me? Because like if I'm a senator, the first thing I want to do is I want to live up to your expectations. I don't want to just be like a figure in a role who doesn't really do much in their role, because honestly that's just wasting everybody's time. And so the first thing I want to do is just be like, okay, like how best can I repay you for voting for me? If you're putting your faith in me, how can I return that faith?
Yeah, also speaking hypothetically, I think the first question I would ask if myself is how can I best advocate for all of you? You know, a large reason why I wanted to run for senator at large is because I wanted to represent the student body and that voice to administration. So if there's something you all wanted enacted and to push back against administration from, then I want to be that person and that voice. So that's the first question I would ask myself.
Amazing. So that was our last question. Round of applause. And then before you guys leave, I want to thank you all for coming. This was a really big effort, and we're happy to have so many of you here. So I hope you guys had a good time. When it comes to other EFC events, I want to remind you all that next week on Monday the 3rd, voting starts, and that goes until Friday at noon. And then later that evening, we're going to have our election reveal gala, so we will find out who your next senators will be. Another thing is that we have our candidate carnival, and that is Monday, March 3rd from 10 a.m. to 12:30 in TUC Great Hall. So we would love to see you there. The candidates are going to be there. There's also going to be bouncy houses, so you guys can have fun. Yeah. And we are going to be setting up pop-up virtual polling sites all around campus. So if you guys would like to volunteer for that, please let us know. And if you see them, make sure you're voting. Make sure you tell your friends to vote. We really want to do a good job next year and represent you as you have heard today. So help us do that and become involved. And yeah, thank you guys again.